And hi, everybody. Welcome back to Sports Talk. Doug Miles, Don Henderson with you. I'm here in Sarasota. Don up in beautiful New Jersey tonight for the holidays until right after Christmas. He'll be right back down here. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Talk a lot of football, of course, and college and pro and a little high school as well. And we're going to start with a little baseball talk because last week one of the great names in baseball, particularly Brooklyn Dodger history. And, Don, I guess you probably saw him pitch many a time. Ralph Branca had a good run, 90 years old, but he passed away last Wednesday.
Yeah, you're exactly right. 90 years of age, and I'll tell you, it was quite a story back in 1951, and a story that those of us that can remember, Phil Mustick wrote a terrific column. I don't know if it was, I think it was Saturday.
I think it was Friday's column. I read it Friday.
Friday's column?
Yeah.
He wrote a terrific column on Friday about Ralph Branca. The fact that he was born too late to really remember the 1951 game. I remember it very, very well. I can tell you exactly where I was. I was in front of St. Francis Church in Trenton, New Jersey, and between Willow and Warren Street, and and Bobby Thompson hit that home run, and I couldn't believe it. Dodgers seemed to have the game well in hand. We're going to win, and they made that change and brought Branca in. And but all the things that happened since 1951, the fact that he and Bobby Thompson appeared so many times together, and all the things that happened, and how well he was received, later on. Not necessarily. In fact, they talked about it when he got married. It was only, I think, 20 days or 21 days after the wedding, and they booed him at his wedding.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and he's one of 17 children. I think a lot of people may not know that, but he's one of 17 children. Every time that they'd have a banquet or anything else, he and Bobby Thompson would be there, and they'd always, talk about it. And he was such a good sport, and they really worked together a lot of times when they had banquets and so forth. They both appeared because if Ralph was invited, he wanted Bobby to come, and if Bobby was invited, he wanted Ralph to come. So it really worked out for both of them in later years. But I'll tell you, it was a devastating day in 1951.
Now, did you hear it on the radio, or were you watching it on TV, or where was it on a set? Where you
No, I was in the car. I was in the car listening on the car. At that time, as you remember, was WHN in New York City, which then became the Fan, and then, of course, was sold, and now the Fan is on a 50,000-watt station. But WHN I was right on the cusp of not being able to get it.
All right.
And you also might remember, not necessarily in the playoffs, but their procedure was that during the regular season, the regular week, at 5:00, the game was automatically turned over to the FM division side.
Oh, really?
And AM did all the news then at 5:00 on WHN. So if you were a Dodger follower, at 5:00 you had to have FM radio, or you couldn't get them.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did that happen even during that game? I mean, they cut away?
No, not during that game.
Okay.
But no, that was a national game. So
right.
no, it was. Well, there are a lot of stories to go with it. Red Barber, as you remember, who did every Dodger game, and Kurt Gowdy, who did every Giant game, and Red did TV that day, and almost nobody had TV in 1951, so his call of the game was lost, and the real call of the game comes from the Giant side.
Russ Hodges. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Russ Hodges, the call that was preserved, right, on radio.
Yeah, that's the one that was preserved. Yep. And
were you listening to the Dodger broadcast? You must have been listening to whoever's doing the Dodgers on radio at the time, right?
I'm trying to think of who it was that was doing the games when Red was not. Well, he very seldom was not there.
Connie Desmond, I guess.
But I can't remember now who actually did the game that day, because Red was doing. They said he was doing a special television version of the game, and I don't even know if it was WOR or I guess it was WOR. They did the games for a long period of time, but I can't remember now whether WOR was the one who was carrying that game or whether it was elsewhere. but I know Red Barber was on TV, and thus Russ Hodges' broadcast is the one that's the most famous.
Well, Connie Desmond, I guess, right, for the Dodgers, or Scully?
Yeah, Connie was there then.
Right.
Connie was there until about 1953, somewhere in that area. Al Helfer was there for a while.
Yeah.
A number of different. They changed off, and then of course Vin Scully came in a little bit later than that.
Now, was Scully there in '51? I think he was on the broadcast team, but he didn't do that many innings, right?
No, I don't know if he was even on the broadcast at '51. I don't remember when he actually joined.
I thought he said he came in '51 or late '50. So
is that right?
When he retired,
well, we ought to know because this was 65 years this year, right?
67.
67
so
years.
I think he came in '51, but I think he said he only did like 1 inning or 2 innings a game at that time. Like the fourth inning and the seventh inning.
Yeah. Red brought him in, and he may have done part of the game. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the sequence of announcers. All I know was that Red was not on the broadcast because he was doing TV.
Now, was that nationally broadcast on TV, or is that still just a local game?
Well, I think it was just there wasn't any national TV in those days.
They didn't do that then. Yeah.
No, you only had the East Coast. Primarily, you just had New York,
tri-state area.
Yeah, the metropolitan New York area. TV was not. I don't know when they first started doing coast-to-coast broadcasts, but that was much later when they finally hooked up and did national broadcasts.
And that game, if I read history correct, that wasn't even a sold-out game. It wasn't a full stadium.
That I don't recall. I don't. I'd have to go back and look. Get the computer out and go back and look.
Yeah.
I would have to say I would doubt that because anytime the Dodgers and Giants played, regardless of whether it was a regular season, the Polo Grounds, or whether it was a regular season game or there was such a high rivalry between those two teams, and people turned out. So I would doubt very much. And it was also, if you remember, it was also the third game.
Right.
Brank actually lost the first game, and then, of course, he lost the third game as well, coming in relief and giving up the home run. And but I would highly doubt that it was not a sold-out game.
I know we had the guy on a couple of years ago. Remember he wrote the book about finding the actual ball? He did a whole documentary on it. And I thought he might have told us it wasn't sold out, but I could be wrong. But because the Polo Grounds held like 60,000, didn't it? I mean, that was a huge place.
I don't know if it's exactly 60. It was I say high 50s, somewhere in that area.
They played football in there. So.
Oh, they played football for years, and then they went over to and played at Yankee Stadium.
Right.
And the Giants actually played at Yankee Stadium before they moved over to the Meadowlands.
Right.
And so, yes, the Polo Grounds was. In fact, the Brooklyn Dodger football team played at Ebbets Field, and before the National Football League was created. So they had a lot of football around New York, and they played in the Polo Grounds. They played at Ebbets Field. They played all over the place.
Yeah, and Ralph Branca, like you mentioned, he and Bobby Thompson. I was listening to some of the fan Francesca talking about it. Would, like you said, go to a lot of banquets together. They had almost like an act put together, where they would both get up and kid each other about it. And he would go to a lot of golf outings. So he's a very personable type of guy.
Well, he lived on Westchester Golf Course.
That's what he said. I was surprised. I didn't know he lived right there.
Yeah, he lived. Ralph lived had a condo on Westchester Golf Course.
Yeah.
The last very short time, I don't think it was a year. He was in a senior citizen home at the very end.
Right.
But no, he was on Westchester. He played golf there all the time. He was a member there, and you're right. As I said, the two of them sort of worked together and made a lot of appearances. In fact, Bobby Thompson would kid him about that. When they had a little bit of a falling out, when they said that they had the spotter up in the scoreboard and they were calling the pitches.
Stealing the signs.
Yeah, a spy in the scoreboard, and they had a little bit of a rift there, but they smoothed that over quickly. And as Bobby Thompson said, and correctly, you tell me what's coming. Somebody's got to hit the ball.
So you got to hit it, right?
Yeah, you got to hit it. And that's exactly what happened. And I'll tell you, in any other ballpark, it would have been nothing. It would have been a fly out to left field.
Yeah.
But the short porches in the Polo Grounds, and even more so, if you looked at a lot of people that would have a picture, they wouldn't know about the Polo Grounds. But if they had a picture of it, the upper deck sort of came out over the lower deck.
An overhang.
Most upper decks are set back a little bit.
Right.
But in the Polo Grounds, it was just the opposite. The upper deck came out beyond the lower deck, and the ball went in the upper deck. If the upper deck hadn't been there, it probably would have been, it would have been up against the wall. I don't know if it would have been a home run, but it just turned out that all the ducks were in the right order, and it went out, and that was the end of that.
How good was Branca, though? I mean, he had a career after that game,
Very
obviously.
Good.
He was a pretty good pitcher until he hurt his arm.
Oh,
right?
yeah. He was in a couple of All-Star games. He won 21 games for the Dodgers once. He was not real good that year in 1951. He was 13-12, if I remember correctly. He had lost 6 games in a row going into the playoffs. And that was the one thing the Dodgers were always short of. The Dodgers were always short of pitching. They had great teams, but when it came to the World Series and the playoffs, they just didn't have the same kind of pitching that, primarily the Yankees had. And but no, he won 21 games. One year, 21-6 or 21-7. But the year of 1951, he was 13-6, and he lost the next 6 games and wound up 13-12.
Right.
I think that's what I could be a little off, but I think they were the numbers. And then, of course, he lost 2 games in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Dodgers, kind of ironically, not having great pitching in those years. They had the more power-hitting lineup. When they went to L.A., they were known for their pitching, right, in the 60s.
Yeah, just the opposite. You're exactly right. And but when they played at Ebbets Field, they had Preacher Rowe and Don Newcomb, and Clem LeBlanc was in the bullpen. And in fact, he actually started a playoff game. And then they had, I don't think Johnny Padres was there in 1951. I think Johnny Padres was 55 when they won the pennant.
Right.
He won the 7th game in 55. But they were very short on pitching. And as I say, Branca, you wouldn't expect that Branca pitched the first game and lost it. He'd be coming in relief, in the 3rd game, but he did.
Yeah.
And Katie barred the door. It was all over.
I don't know if that was the only time they did it, but to have a 3-game end-of-the-season playoff, that might have been the only time they ever did that, right? After that, didn't they just do the 1-game playoff?
I think so. There was another playoff with the Giants. Dodgers and Giants had a playoff. I'm not sure whether it was 3 games or not, but it was after.
After that?
They went to L.A., and I remember Williams pitched the last game and walked in the winning run for the Giants. The Giants won the pennant on a loaded base on balls.
Oh, wow. I
remember that very well too. And when Newcomb was pitching for the Dodgers in those early 50s, it was quite a matchup with the Phillies at that time because he and Robin Roberts wore the same number. And Don Newcomb pitched both ends of a doubleheader. He pitched the first game, and the Dodgers won, and then he came out and pitched, I think, maybe 5 or 6 innings of the second game.
Wow.
I don't remember whether the Dodgers won the second game or not, but that's how short the Dodgers were pitching. And they went at critical times. Don Newcomb pitched 2 games in one day.
Wow. You mean he completed the first game and then pitched another 5 in the second?
Yeah, I think it was 5 or 6 in the second game. I can't remember.
Unheard of.
In this day and age, it would never happen.
He's still around. They showed him on.
He works for the Dodgers.
One of the playoff games. They showed him in the press box. Looks pretty good. I guess he's got to be in his 90s. Yeah, look great.
Yeah, he's married and doing very well. He had a tough time. He goes around talking baseball because he had a alcohol problem.
Yeah, right.
He had an alcohol problem, and so he now represents the Dodgers and goes around and talks about alcoholism and the problems that you create for yourself. And so he's sort of an ambassador for the Dodgers in a number of different ways and still works for the club.
Yeah, that's I know He'd been doing that for many, many years, talking about his own issue
Yes.
with alcohol. So that's great that he overcame that, and God bless him. He looked good on TV. They showed him. So
yeah, I
looked
saw him
good
in the
health.
press box several times, and you're right. He looks very, very good. And but as I say, what great battles they had between Robin Robertson and Don Newcomb. I mean, it was just great fun, and they pitched all the way. You know, they never there weren't any great bullpens in those days. Jim Constanti was great for the Phillies in 1950. He came in and I forget how many games he saved and won. He was one of the classic relief pitchers, and then he started, I think, Game 2 of the World Series because the Phillies didn't have any pitching. What happened there was Curt Simmons, who was one of their better pitchers and a left-hander, so it was Robin Roberts, Curt Simmons, but he was drafted, and at that time they wouldn't release him to come back and play to win the World Series. So the Phillies were so short of pitching, and so they pitched Jim Constanti. I think I'm almost sure it was the second game. I wouldn't bet my life on it. I think Roberts pitched the first game, and the first game went 10 innings, if I remember correctly. And Joe DiMaggio hit a home run on the upper deck at then Shad Park, which became Conemack Stadium. Hit a home run at the top of the 10th inning and beat Nuke in that game, or beat the Phillies, in that game. And the next day, Constanti pitched and started, but the Phillies lost it in 4 straight in 1950.
Oh, great. So remember the great Ralph Branca, one of the boys of summer.
Yes, he was.
He never went to L.A., though, right? He retired, I think, before the team left, didn't it?
I think you're correct.
Yeah.
He pitched for a couple of. In fact, he actually pitched. Was on the Yankee staff. I don't think he pitched maybe one game or something, but
right.
He pitched for 3 teams other than the Dodgers. But by that time, he was, not really a dominant pitcher.
Yeah. Somebody else that passed away, and say good riddance, Castro, also at 90.
Well, yeah, but that was controversy yesterday. Boy, oh boy, I'll tell you. That San Francisco team can't stay away from controversy, can they? I mean,
Kaepernick apparently wore a shirt with his picture on it and made some
and extolled the virtues of Castro.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so did the Prime Minister of Canada today. Didn't he or she, whoever it is, Trudeau, do the same thing today?
He's a he, and the one place you don't want to, extol the virtues of Castro is in Miami. I mean, they're playing the Miami Dolphins, and holy Christmas sakes, all the people that came out on rowboats and everything else trying to get away from there, but I'm not getting killed, and that was not the place to make that kind of a statement. So, or make that kind of a presentation with T-shirts and everything else. So,
moron.
He's only added on to the thing. He played a great game, though. I'll say that for him.
Did he? I didn't.
He gained what? He gained like 130 yards himself on the ground.
Yeah. He better keep running.
Huh?
He better keep running.
Yeah, and kind of like 200 or something in the air. He had a great day. They lost, but I didn't think he gave much of an effort on that. I was a little disappointed. He got stopped on the 1.5 yard line, which would have given him a chance to tie the game up. And he cut back in, and it didn't look like he gave, I don't know, maybe I'm incorrect, but it just looked like he collapsed a little bit rather than trying to drive right through somebody and get to the goal line. It looked like he sort of collapsed there. But he did have a great game yesterday, but I certainly can't recommend anything else that he does.
He's free to move to Cuba if he wants. I mean, if it's so great there, why doesn't he move there?
Well, they say he's still not standing up for the national anthem. He's still.
Did they show that at all, or him kneeling again?
No, I didn't see it. If he did, I didn't see the beginning of the game, so I don't know. But he certainly got probably a lot of publicity over the Castro thing, but I did not see whether he stood for the national anthem or not. I'm glad to see Evans did for the Buccaneers.
Right. I think he woke up to the fact he lives in a military town.
Right. And not only that,
Tampa.
but look at the letters that the people that the commanding officers at different places around the country wrote to the Buccaneers
Right there at
about
McDill.
Yeah, they were up in arms about it,
Yeah.
and so especially the fact that it was not Soldiers' Day. I can't remember the terminology of what the weekend was, but anyway, it was a major.
They honored soldiers there. You're right. Honored. When Veterans Day, but they honored.
Veterans Day. That's what it was. Yeah. And but anyway, he did apologize, and my belief is that his letter of apology was written by the PR department.
Oh, no doubt.
But he did at least agree not to do it again. So I'll give him a little credit for doing that. He realized he made a serious mistake.
But I mean, maybe not on the same scale that of Hitler, but Castro did the same things in Cuba, so he belongs in the same place Hitler is right now. So.
Well, I don't know if you had the New York Post yesterday.
I read that. I was going to say that article kind of laid out pretty much his life, and read that if you have any doubts of what he was all about.
Yeah, exactly right. If you have any doubts, talk to the people that live in this country now that came from Cuba. If you don't think he killed a lot of people,
oh man,
and did a lot of bad things. Why, get the New York Post of yesterday and read a little bit of his life story.
Yeah. And the other person who passed away, Mrs. Brady. I know that was one of your favorite shows, the Brady Bunch, Florence Henderson.
Florence Henderson, yes, indeed. In fact, somebody wrote a piece about that they ought to name the new ballpark in Arizona.
The Florence, South Carolina, the Florence Henderson.
Yeah, Florence. They ought to name it the Florence, South Carolina Stadium.
I saw that. Well, she was a very talented woman. I mean, forget about the Brady Bunch. She was on Broadway. She did television back in the 50s. I mean, she was on all the variety shows. So, very talented lady.
Very, very talented, and she had a very talented husband too, who was also a singer. I can't think of his name.
Oh, is that right?
At the moment.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, he was. I think I got the right woman, but I think he was on Broadway too, a big time singer. I can't think of his name.
Oh, all right.
But he also had an alcohol problem too.
Yeah. Well, you're thinking of Gordon McRae, I think.
No, not Gordon McRae. No. I think it's Florence Henderson's wife. I'm more sure.
I thought she was married to one guy who was maybe like a producer, but I don't know who else she was married to. Maybe you may be right, but
I don't know.
Anyway, she was very one of the early women on the Today Show. Might have been the first woman host of it back in the late '50s, and
she did a lot of great things. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, very, very good. And Brady Bunch she's known for, and that was kind of a throwaway for her. She didn't expect to get that, but she was a good entertainer. So.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
But let's get back to football now, and we'll start with college football. Don, you and I talked a little bit about the games. I was up at USF watching Willie's boys win their 10th game of the year. Congratulations to them. But I know you were behind watching the set of that classic Ohio State game.
Yeah, I saw a replay of it, and I'll tell you, that was some game. It really was just an amazing game, and all the conversation today, and you mentioned Francesa a little bit ago, and a lot of the callers on his show today. I did hear, bits and pieces of the show because I was driving around in the car, and Harbaugh is one of my favorites. I mean, he's a great coach. His brother's a great coach in Baltimore. His dad was a first-rate coach. His other brother's a first-rate coach. So, but he sort of lost control. No question about it. He deserved the 15-yard penalty. You just can't lose your composure like that, especially in a critical game, and he did. And but in all fairness to him, I'm an Ohio State fan. I've been an Ohio State fan for years, and I follow him pretty closely. But I have to say that first down that they showed the they showed the replay a number of times. I agree with it. His head got over the line. Maybe his shoulders got over the line, but I don't think the ball got over the line. So I would really question whether that was a good call. And, of course, it wound up costing them the game because they went right in for a touchdown after that. And I give Michigan all the credit in the world. They came right back and scored on, 4 plays. And But that particular play I thought was sort of very, very questionable. Could have gone either way, and it just went Ohio State's way. And the other factor was that, you could almost call hooking on a pass interference call anytime you want to. I mean, they say, well, he got his hands on him. I mean, it seems to me like sometimes they have their hands on their shoulder and shoulder pads, and that's okay. And then another time they'll put it down by their shoulder bones, and then it's a penalty. So it just depends on who's making the call, how well they can see it, what the situation is. But I thought Harbaugh made a serious mistake in his post-game press conference. I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
I read about it. Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think he made a serious mistake.
He's not a classy guy. Let's be honest. He's always been this way too. It's not.
Well, he's a motor.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
And he's like Jimmy Boeheim up at Syracuse.
Right.
They don't get every call. They moan, and so consequently, but he just rifled the officials, and I just don't think he could do that. I think you just got to accept it. This is the way the calls went. You lost the ball game. It was a great game. I mean, it was one of the great college games of all time. It'll go down in the histories of probably one of the greatest Michigan State Ohio State games in the history of the matchup. So It was a terrific game. What great defense! Just wonderful game. And it's unfortunate, that at the end in the press conference, that instead of just accepting it and say, well, we didn't get a couple of calls, he really rifled the officials, which was too bad.
Yeah, it was our game was just finished. USF won their game against University of Central Florida.
That's 10 wins now.
And, we went down to hear Willie Taggart talk when the game was on the TV until Willie came in. It's about 15, 20 minutes. So we saw the double overtime in the press, the Willie postgame area.
Right.
But Willie came out, and he was very happy. Of course, they won their 10th game, most they've ever won in the program. They never did that before. They had 9 previously under, I believe, Skip, or maybe Jim Levitt. I think they had 9 wins.
Yeah.
But,
and you said during the postgame interview that he said he would be watching the Temple game with high hopes, but those high hopes floundered early. They floundered early.
Our friend Leo Haggerty was there with his little video camera, and he asked him, are you going to be wearing the East Carolina gold and purple, whatever their colors are tonight? And Willie said, no, I'm wearing the green and gold of USF. But I listened to a little bit of that Temple game when I got home, put on the radio, satellite radio, and ECU got off to a 7-0 lead, but then Temple came right and tied it, and then that was the end of the game, pretty much. You could tell.
You're right. They got off. They were down 7-0, and boom. Temple just took the game over, actually controlled the ball on the ground dramatically, and very enthusiastic crowd at the Link. They play the games for those people that aren't familiar with Temple football. They play at the Link, same place that tonight's game is going to be with the Eagles.
Right.
And they share the park with them. And it was a very, very big win. In fact, it was a very big weekend for Temple. The basketball team, Fran Dunphy, won 2 games in the preseason NIT at Madison Square Garden over 2 top 25 teams, one of them being Florida State, and the other one being West Virginia, Jimmy Huggins' team. And then, of course, the football team came out under rule and won the Eastern Division of Conference, and now we'll see what happens next weekend. They're on TV, by the way, at noontime next week, coming Saturday.
AAC championship game is Temple at Navy in Annapolis, and like you said, ABC or ESPN, right. noon start. So the reason I was interested, obviously, we both, it's kind of your alma mater as far as a broadcaster. My alma mater is USF. If USF had to win and then Temple had to lose for USF to get, actually it would have been a home game here for the championship at Raymond James, but didn't work out.
Well, Navy gets a couple of breaks. One, they play, at Annapolis in the championship game, and then they're playing the Army-Navy game, down there too.
Right. Following week.
The following weekend. Yeah. It's not going to be at the Link in Philadelphia, which it is most of the time. Sometimes it goes to New York. Once I think it went to Southern California, but primarily they play in Philly. But this is one of the off years where they're playing down in Annapolis, and so Should be a great game. Army's got one of the better teams that they've had in years. Navy's been playing very, very well, but they have to play the AAC championship game this Saturday before they worry about Army.
And an irony is, again, USF beat Navy a few weeks ago at home, a game USF had to win. But
right.
Different divisions, so they didn't beat Temple when they had to. That was the whole difference. The one loss in the conference to Temple that cost them the division.
Yeah, for those that don't follow the AAC, which sometimes is difficult. Although I'll tell you, most of the games are on Thursday night. Most of the games have been pretty
good quality of games. I was surprised.
Yeah, they've been pretty competitive.
Yeah.
I will say that most of the games over the year have been very competitive, and Temple was fortunate enough to knock USF off. And as you said, in a head-to-head, and that was the differential to University of South Florida going to the championship game and Temple going to the championship game because their records were almost identical.
Yeah, 10-2, and the only other loss for USF was against Florida State at home. Then Temple, I don't know who was the other team they lost to.
They lost to Penn State.
Penn State. Okay, so they both lost to schools they probably would have lost to anyway. So it just came down to that head-to-head between
they beat
Penn
State the year before, but they lost to them this year.
Right.
And the Penn State team that's playing now is not the Penn State team that played the first 4 or 5 games this year.
They're the old school Penn State now. They're in that category of.
Yeah, they're going to play the championship game of the Big Ten, but unfortunately, neither one of the teams I think have a chance to go to the big top four teams. It's going to be interesting. I didn't turn the TV on at 7:00 tonight to see what the top 4 teams are right now. But tonight they do that at 7:00. I think
so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean I don't see how they can move Michigan out. They might be able to move down from 3rd to 4th and put Clemson up at 3rd. It's going to be interesting because trying to get Ohio State in there when they don't win a conference championship, although their schedule was, fantastic, and they beat Michigan, number 3 team in the last game of the season. It's going to be interesting to see how the voting goes as to what 4 teams are going to wind up. I mean, unless something dramatic happens with Clemson, you have to figure that they're going to be in there. I just don't see. I don't see Florida beating Clemson. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, one other thing on USF, and Willie Taggart mentioned that, and some of the other players too, with 10 wins and that powerhouse offense, incredible offense that they put together. They were saying, hey, we got to get some love from the ranking committee, and they got ranked today in the top 25. They actually got a 24, so that's going to help them with their hopefully with their bowl selection. They'll get a better bowl.
Right. What they have to do is they have to get some defense. That's a problem.
Defense is shaky at times. You're right.
Yeah, and Temple, their defense improved as the season went along, but they're still not they're not a dominant defensive team. They're an offensive team.
Yeah.
And most of them, Fred Setzel was kidding today about the Syracuse game. I mean, how can that be a football game?
I saw that, yeah.
I agree with him. What kind of football game is that?
75 to 60-something?
69 or something like that.
Unbelievable. And Navy put up 75 against SMU.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I don't understand, what to say of them. And then they'll go out and play a legitimate team and they can't score 14 points. That's just crazy. But no, I think the one thing about the conference is that it's more of an offensive conference. But as I say, the last 5 games that Temple has played, their defense has been much better.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. I saw 6 of the 7 home games this year for USF, and they averaged over 42 points a game, I believe, all season long, like 300 or 400, 500 yards on offense most games. The running back, we had a chance to call out of his games in high school here, Marlon Mack. So, and Quentin Flowers, one of the top quarterbacks. So they're a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, that whole conference is really based on offense, no huddle offense, and not a lot of defense.
Yep, you got that right. And how was the crowd there Saturday?
It's actually better than I thought. I thought it would be about the average, maybe 20, 25, because it's the holiday weekend. But they announced it as 35,000. Now, I don't think it was that much, but it was a very enthusiastic crowd. The USF crowd really got into it. So.
Well, I'll tell you, when you're winning, what happens? People come.
People
It's
come
as
now.
simple-
A little late for
it's
this
as
year.
simple as
Hopefully
that.
next year that'll build on, get some season tickets. People fill up that place a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so, because I'll tell you, Willie Tiger's done what's this 3 years now.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the barometer. That's, you and I talked about Texas and Charlie Strong.
Yeah, let's get into that after we finish with this.
To me, that's the barometer. By the third year, with the ability they have to recruit and to, be a much less than 500 team after your third year, after you've supposedly recruited some top athletes, just doesn't get it done. So I thought they were going to make a change. They did make a change. It's going to be interesting to see how the change goes. I was looking for the press conference, but I never did. I have, as I said to you many times, I have the Longhorn Network, and I tried to catch the press conference, but I never found out what time it was going to be on, and I never saw it. But it's going to be interesting. Coming over from Houston, he built the program dramatically in 3 years over there. He was a graduate assistant under Mac Brown at Texas in his early coaching days, so he has experience in Austin. He knows what it's all about. He's supposed to be a great recruiter, which is what you have to have, and it'll be very interesting to see. So I agreed with that. The one I didn't agree with was LSU. I don't mean the fellow that's going to coach him now. I don't know anything about him.
Or Ed Orgeron.
But I just thought, how do you fire a guy that's 120 something and 23?
Yeah.
But nobody's hired him yet, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, Tom Herman, the worst kept
Right.
secret in college football. He was going to go to Texas. They've been saying that for a couple of months now, and. Now, you don't want to feel too bad for Charlie Strong. He's going to get a nice $11 million buyout, but I always felt a little bad for any coach like that. It was really dead man walking. I mean, he really had no chance this year.
Well, he had a chance if he'd have won. If he'd had a...
They had to go 10-1 this year, or 10-2 for him to start.
I don't even think that. I think if he'd have been
8-4?
No, I think if he'd have been 9-3, something like that, and showed dramatic improvement in the team. I mean, he's supposed to be a defensive coach, and they couldn't stop anybody in the second half. Just kept getting rolled over, and I think he'll land on his feet again. I did not see. You had mentioned to me, I guess over the weekend we were talking about it. You had mentioned to me that there was a clause in the contract that they said if he gets another job. Well, normally they do have a clause in there that if they release you and you get another job, you get a certain percentage of the money you don't have to pay. As you said, $11 million he still has coming. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets on his job right away, or whether he decides to sit out and not pursue a job for a year and see what happens. But if you're a coach, you want to coach. So I would say if there's a vacancy somewhere that they can bring him in, I think he'll probably get another job.
It was kind of weird. You mentioned the clause in the contract. I just happened to read it, the story about it. It said that he has to make a concerted effort. That's, I think, the term they use to find work. He just can't sit there and do nothing. So I guess they could just then hold back some of that money at that point. Usually I figure if you get your buyout, they pay it to you in one lump sum, but he's getting paid monthly until he finds another job, and he has to actually actively look for one. So it's not totally a lump sum buyout. He gets paid by the month until he finds another job.
He'll get paid by the month, but you can have a lot of you can have a lot of letters that you send out looking for work.
Oh, sure.
You don't get it. So, but one way or the other, he's going to get most of that.
I thought he did a very good job. I saw him at the St. Pete Bowl down here a few years ago when he brought Louisville in. I was very impressed with, went to his post-game press conference. And,
well, that's why they hired him, because of his record at Louisville.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I just got the feeling when he got that Texas job, he had a short opportunity, small window to get it done. And like you said, I read the thing you sent. Thanks for sending it from your alumni association. They just didn't really give him that much time to turn it around. And
well, they gave a 5-year deal, and as I say, in my estimation, which doesn't mean anything, but I think if you hire a coach by the third year,
right,
he's got to make marked improvement. If he hasn't made marked improvement by the third year, with his staff,
right?
Going out and recruiting players to come in, and then once you recruit those players to have them excel in the field, and maybe you're not going to be a challenge for a national championship or something, but you got to be a lot better. I mean, Houston went with a 10-2, I think, this year, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and lost the last game of the year though, badly. But he was there 3 years also, and showed dramatic improvement each year. So I think that's what you have to do. But if you can't do that, you're not going to stick around too long.
They won. Actually, they lost. No, they finished 9-3. 9-3 because they lost
That's
to
right.
Memphis.
They lost Saturday. They lost the last game.
But you and I were kind of talking too. Tom Herman, kind of a name out of nowhere. I guess he was an assistant at Ohio State, offensive coordinator before he went to Houston, and only 3 years there. I mean, did a good job, but Texas is, I guess they go for the hot name in coaching. They figure he's going to turn them around. But how did the Longhorns feel about that?
Yeah, as I said a minute ago, there's also a graduate assistant under Mac Brown. So right. Mac Brown, who's now doing, in fact, he does most of the AAC games on Thursday nights, and he does others as well, but he's been close to the conference. And so I would imagine, I don't know, but I would imagine as a graduate assistant, they became friends over a period of time, and I'm sure that the administration at Texas is going to listen to the information that Mac Brown's going to give them, even though they fired him 3 years ago. Right. I think very much they're going to listen to, what he has to say in his evaluation of what Herman would do. So we'll see what happens.
I wouldn't be surprised if Charlie Strong goes to Houston. Kind of a trade of coaches. They're still going to be in good shape next year, I think.
Well, he's got $11 million to work with, so Houston doesn't have to pay him too much.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he want to stay in the state. He's already recruiting there. Why not?
Yeah, and also not only that, but he's also very familiar with the conference. So,
yeah.
He could have he played at coached at Louisville, then coached at Texas, and then moved right back. So he knows this. He knows the draft, not draft, but the recruiting procedure right now in Texas. Who might want to go, who might not want to go, who qualifies, who doesn't qualify, which give them a leg up in Houston. But I haven't heard anything about them talking to him yet.
I'm putting that one out, that he's going to go to Houston.
Okay.
But it would make sense, though. I mean, they need a coach, a big name in Texas. I mean, give him a chance. The people that thought he didn't get enough time, why not give him a shot? So.
Well, they could certainly do it, no question about it. And you see, he'd be inheriting some pretty good players. I don't think they're all seniors this year. They lost only 3 games, so he'd be inheriting a pretty good team. He wouldn't be coming in. When he took over from Mac Brown, Mac didn't have he didn't have much talent there. He had drafted he had recruited too well the last few years at Texas, and it did him in. So, although they said Charlie did recruit well, but the players just didn't develop as quickly as he thought they would.
Mesh that well. One more thing on Willie Taggart before we talk about some NFL games. Some articles in the paper speculating, what USF had to do to keep Willie there. I'm sure he's going to get some offers. You and I talked about that. I would think he'd want to stay at least one more year. He's got the quarterback coming back. He's got Marlon Mack coming back. I think he wants to make a good run next year, and then after that, he may look for other offers.
Well, I sort of hope, again, we've talked about this at the beginning of the year. Coach Rule took a nice bonus at Temple and had his contract increased. I'm sure that Taggart did the same thing at the University of South Florida. And both seem to be, pretty content with what's going on with their recruiting, the people they're working with. You sort of hope that, they'll hang in there for a little while and not, but awfully hard to turn down $5 or $6 million. I don't know how much they're paying either one of those coaches, but I'm sure it's not $5 million.
Yeah, I know Willie got a contract extension after last year. They had a good year, 8 wins and a bowl game. I think he got something like 2, something like that. I think that's what it was, $2 million.
I really don't have any idea. The Rule got it, same thing. He got an extension bonus for going to a ball game, and it should be interesting to see. I was amazed when they said that they may go to the Cotton Bowl the other night. I don't think they're going to go to the Cotton Bowl, but we'll just have to wait and see. I'd be a real shock to me if they went to the Cotton Bowl because there are an awful lot of good teams right now. And the other thing is that when you go to a bowl game, you got to be able to produce some fans. And
USF hasn't proven they can travel well outside.
That's
the
right.
State.
Neither school has. Temple doesn't travel well, and neither does USF.
Right.
And so consequently, they want to fill the stadiums if they're going to bring you in, and it would be very difficult, I think, to obviously they'll bring a Southwest team in to play in the Cotton Bowl, somebody in that area as the headliner. But I mean, I just don't think certainly there would not be much excitement over Temple playing at the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of options. Obviously, the St. Pete Bowl, which is at the Trop. I mean, that wouldn't be a great one because it's the same area. The Boca Raton Bowl has an affiliation with the AAC, so they might go there.
They played there last year, I think.
They played in Miami last year, the Miami Bowl.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, which they could go there. If you go out of state, I would imagine they wouldn't. It would be something like maybe some bowl in Alabama or one of those kind
right.
of.
Well, I think a lot will depend on what they do with Navy this week. If they come on ahead and beat Navy, they're going to get a lot of national attention.
Temple will, right.
Because Navy's had a great schedule, has won a lot of games, and this is the first year that Army has really been that competitive. Throughout their schedule. I don't know if they can beat Navy again. It seems like forever since they've won.
Yeah.
But at least he said that game should be an interesting game to follow as a spectator. So it's going to be interesting. If they beat Navy, they may jump into a rather serious bowl. But we'll have to wait and see. Again, I think a lot of it depends too on what do they need as far as attendance is concerned. How many tickets do you have to buy?
Right.
School has to buy 25,000 tickets. They're not going to go to that bowl.
No. I always wonder why Navy has been, of the academies, they're always much better than Army. You figure Army would have the greatest football team of all time. It's the Army. Well, I know they don't get to recruit the top players because you got to be smart to go to West Point. You got to go to class.
There's a sharp distinction between what the rules are at Navy than the rules are at West Point.
There is no benefit or no special privileges to be on football there. You do this.
No, no special privileges, but they can recruit bigger players. They can recruit. Navy has a more flexible recruiting system than Army does.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm just saying, once you get in the academy, even if you're on a team, you still got to go to class and do all the other stuff, military stuff. So
absolutely.
You don't get any breaks.
No, you don't get any. You don't get any breaks. But you're allowed to become. I mean, even in the early days with the Admiral when Robinson was there.
Right.
Army, I don't think could have recruited the Admiral.
I don't know how he ever got in those submarines. I mean, remember that was the big thing? He actually served on a submarine, Robinson.
I don't think he served too long. He got out pretty early.
Let's talk some NFL before we run out of time. And we mentioned briefly the Buccaneers with a big win over the Seahawks. Seahawks had won 3 in a row, and the Bucs have now, I believe, they've won 3 in a row as well. Weird game, 14-5, the final score.
I didn't get a chance to see that game.
I didn't either. I just read up on it. Apparently it was 14-0 after the first quarter, and then that was it. Seattle scored those 5, a safety, obviously, and a field goal.
Well, it's amazing. All the big games that Seattle has played and all that talk about Pete Carroll and what he's done with the defense and how much the team had improved. I was shocked when I kept seeing the score coming up as to what was actually happening. What was actually happening in the game. And I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, very strange. So the Bucs.
But they said the defensive line for the Bucs really played exceptionally well.
They've been playing so badly at home until a few weeks ago. Now they're playing much better. So the odds.
They won 2 in a row.
Yeah, catching up with the Bucs. So they had to play better. They were so brutal at home. And, the other game, the Jets and the Patriots, which was supposed to be the Sunday night game. We can get into the Sunday night game that was on in a minute if you like. But Jets, as they usually do, play the Patriots kind of close, but. Fitzpatrick got hit, fumbled, and the Patriots score a late touchdown and win.
Yeah, Brady has a way of doing it. I mean, no matter what, no matter what happens, he finds a way. You know, they talked about how rusty he was. I did see that game, how rusty he was early on in the game because he hadn't practiced 2 days. He didn't practice Tuesday or Wednesday. He only practiced Thursday.
Knee injury.
And because of the knee. And then they also did the interview with him after the game. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. And, you know, he talks about the fact that, you know, sometimes you just got to suck it up and play. And but he was a little bit off in the early part of the game. He was overthrowing receivers and so forth. But when it's on the line, when it's the end of the game, you know, he's going to get you there.
Yeah, that's the Bill Belichick Patriots way. Even if you don't play well, you find a way to win. And it's the Jets way. You play well enough to win, and then you give it up at the end.
Well, that's what they, you know, and now, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there because they kept showing
Todd Bowles.
Well, not Todd. They kept showing the owner up there, and Mr. Johnson, Woody Johnson,
was up there in the booth.
He was up there all by himself, and he didn't look too happy. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens now. So, I mean, you know, I'm a great Todd Bowles fan in the sense that he's a Temple guy, and he's had a lot of great coaching experience, and you know, he's already said today. When he had his early press conference that Fitzpatrick was going to start, you know, the papers have all been writing for 2 weeks now that he should take Fitzpatrick out and play the other quarterback. And he said, I'm playing games to win, and my best chance to win is to have Fitzpatrick. I'm not worried about next year. And I will say this for him, in fairness to everybody else in the league, the teams that you're playing, you should play your best players, you know, unless you're playing a team that's out of it. And he thinks, and he obviously sees, you know, practice every day, and he thinks this is his best option to win. And boy, oh boy, did they come down on him! Oh my gosh!
How was the? Did you watch the SNY post game show? How was that? They usually rip them pretty.
No,
good
I did not see it. I did not see the. It was late, and it was dinner time. And once the game was over, I didn't get a chance to.
It's a much better show when the Jets lose. They really go to town.
Well, I wish I had seen it yesterday, but I did not see it, so I can't comment on it. But I imagine, not knowing much about it, I can imagine that they were very, very tough. Although I'll tell you, Fitzpatrick did not play badly. I mean, I thought he held his own, and he had him in the game. Certainly had a chance to win the game, but they just didn't get it done. That's one of those. It's one of those things. Brady just keeps doing it. I don't know. It's Revis. Boy, they killed Revis today.
They were getting on him good. Yeah.
Oh, brutal. He started off the season shaky, and he hadn't gotten any better. They crushed him yesterday, and I don't know if they're going to have to make a change at corner, but or move to safety or do something with him other than what they're doing because the game-winning touchdown was right over top of him, but he did knock it down, and they've been brutal in the papers today about Revis, so. We'll just have to wait and see what happens there.
Well, it would have been even more brutal if the Giants had lost to Cleveland yesterday, but they came through with a necessary. You got to win that game.
Yeah, they did.
If they had lost that, they would have had the back page.
And didn't have much of an offensive display, but they did have a great defensive display. Yeah. And so that part. From a defensive standpoint, they were just exceptional.
Cleveland now 0-12, trying to match the Lions of several years back when they went 0-16. So.
And what were your thoughts, before I get into mine, what were your thoughts of the game last night? Did you stay up to watch it?
I didn't get to see any of it. I heard or read about it a little bit, and they said it was one of the best of the Sunday night games that's been played in quite a while. But I guess Kubiak made kind of a bonehead move, huh?
Well, see, I disagree. That's where I disagree. Everybody really condemned him for that, and tried to kick a 52-yard field goal.
Yeah.
He knows his kicker. He knows he can kick the 52-yard field goal, and you play the game to win. And as he said in the post game, which I thought was great, he came in right away and said, everybody wanted to jump on him right away. Why did you punt the ball and play for a tie? And he said, I had no timeouts left. He said, my kicker I had confidence in before the game. He told me that he could kick that 62-yard field goal. When they talked about his previous kicks, they said in the pre-games he was kicking the ball 62. And he said, I play to win. And I would have no chance to win if I punted the ball away. And so he took a chance. And, it didn't work. But I give him credit. I would have done the same thing. You play to win.
Sure.
You don't play to tie. And so I would have given it a shot myself. I thought he was absolutely right. I would have done it. And it didn't turn out. But also, after it was over, in all fairness, I mean, they came down and scored a touchdown. So it wasn't like, they moved the ball right down the field. They didn't score a touchdown. They kicked a field goal. But, I mean, they came right down the field and got to the 15. I think they got the ball the 15-yard line with 8 or 14 seconds. I can't remember which was. 14, I think it was. And they decided to kick it on third down. And, I thought he was right. I would have done the same thing. It takes a lot of nerve to do it. But, hey, you're going to get fired if you lose.
Right.
And so, not that I think Kubiak's going to get fired, but hey, you got to win. That's the name of the game, and I would have done the same thing. I would have played to win. I would not have turned the towel in and just kicked the ball away and kicked out of bounds at the 5-yard line or whatever, and then played for the tie. I wouldn't have done that.
And a 52-yard field goal out in Mile High there is, you figure that's 6-7 yards less. It's like a 46-yarder.
Well, they talked about
So
that all during the game.
There.
The fact that you could kick the ball much further.
About 10-15% difference. So
take
8 yards off of that field goal.
But it's a lot.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot. And as I said, Kubiak said right away, he can kick the ball 62 yards. It's not that he can't do it. He just hooked it. That's all. And it went left side of the goalpost. And hey, listen. They almost missed a game-winning field goal to win the game. I hit the post on the left side, but it went in. It went through instead of bouncing back on the field. It hit the post and made a 45-degree angle across but it went over the goalpost. It wasn't like it was a sure thing going up there. I'll tell you that.
Nothing's a sure thing now, even with the extra points. I think. I don't know, 10 or 15. I guess 12 or 15 have been missed already this year, extra points. So
a lot. They missed a lot of extra points. And, you say what you want to, but especially now in December, you get the bad weather and you get the wind and you're kicking a 35-yard extra point. It's not that simple.
No.
And the day that they missed all of them across the country was the day that we had those real strong winds. Remember, it was Saturday, Sunday, we had the real strong winds, and that's when they missed a lot of the extra points. But no, the wind conditions, the weather conditions changed it dramatically, and so moving it back to the 25, makes it a real competitive situation, and especially in December.
One final note before we wrap up, just want to mention a team that my friend Ed Schneider and I have been a chance to broadcast. Venice Indians now in the state semifinals of high school football. They beat East Lake unbelievably. Ed, another running clock, 43-14. They will play one of the top teams in the country, St. Thomas Aquinas, on the road at Fort Lauderdale this Friday. Don't know if we're going to do the game yet on radio, but that'll be their toughest test, obviously, all year. If they win that, they go to the Citrus Bowl to play for the state title.
Yeah, you were saying that they may go into this one, although most of the games they've been a favorite going in that they've won. You said this one they may be a little bit of an underdog against Aquinas.
Yeah, we saw Aquinas earlier this year. They were on ESPN, too. They played Bishop Gorman, which is the number 1 team in the country from Las Vegas. And that went to double overtime. They lost that game. I think that was their only loss of the year. So they're almost like a small college team. So it's going to be tough. But they have a chance, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they ought to be able to schedule IMG. They're a small professionals team.
That'd be a good matchup. If IMG played in a district, they don't. They play independent, so they don't play in local schools around here very often.
But I would think they'd be able to play it. As you said, they played last year at the Citrus Bowl for the state championship. Would they be not allowed to play IMG?
Yeah, IMG doesn't qualify in any district, so they can't do that. They can play a game on the schedule, but they can't qualify for the playoffs or a state
title. It seems to me that a couple of years ago, Manatee went someplace.
Manatee played Aquinas a couple of times over the last few years. Yeah, they beat them once and they lost once.
Why couldn't Venice?
Yeah.
Or why couldn't Aquinas play IMG if they could play Manatee?
They can play a regular season game, but it doesn't count. IMG isn't in a district, so they can't play any kind of district title or qualify for a state title at all.
Right.
Yeah, which I think they should be in a district. I think but they want to play all these other top schools around the country, so it doesn't qualify as really a school. It's just football or sports.
Yeah.
They have maybe 100 guys there to play football, and that's the whole school.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this. The rules and regulations in Florida. The best I can do is
that's
with
what
Doug
I was
Fernandez.
told. That's why they don't play in the district.
When Doug Fernandez was on with us a few months ago and fine columnist for the Herald, and talked about the way they've changed the rules a little bit now.
We'll have to get him on again because they changed the whole thing again. The playoffs are different.
Oh, did they?
They added a couple of different wrinkles to it last week with the point system. So maybe he can explain it to us. Maybe we can get him on next week.
Well, maybe we'll get him on next week, and because the game will be over, we can talk about the game. I imagine he'll be over to cover it. And
I'm not sure if he's making a trip. We're not sure if we're going yet. Hopefully we will. But if not, we'll follow it somewhere online. Well, Don, hope you had a good Thanksgiving up there. We had a nice one down here. We missed you, but enjoy the cold weather for a few more weeks.
Yeah, well, I tell you, it hadn't been too cold. It's not going to be till it was cold when I first got here, 2 days before Thanksgiving, and it was cold. But today was like 54, 55, and all week it's going to be in the daytime. It's going to be. There's only one day I think it's going to be 45. The rest of the days are going to be 50, 51, 52. So it's going to be fine, no problems.
Oh, great. Well, Don, have a good week, and thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you again next time.
Right.